At 7:45 in the morning, at a refinery south of Lyon, a safety valve opened exactly as it was designed to. Gas vented from the top of a steel sphere holding hundreds of tons of liquid propane and burned off in a steady torch, 10 meters high. To the firefighters watching, this was good news. The official report records what they believed. The situation would be under control within 2 or 3 hours. The sphere could look after itself now. So the firefighters moved their water onto the tanks beside it. 1 hour later, at 8:45, that sphere tore itself open. 18 people did not survive the morning. 11 of them were firefighters. The valve had not failed. It worked until the very last second. That is the part nobody understood in 1966. The valve was never saving the sphere. It was only buying time, and the time ran out. To understand how a working safety valve ends with 11 dead firefighters, we go back 2 hours to a routine job on a cold January morning. Water settles at the bottom of a propane sphere, and draining it off was ordinary work. The drain line under sphere 443 had 2 valves, one above the other. The procedure was strict. Crack the upper valve open first, then regulate the flow with the lower one, and never open it all the way. The order existed for one reason. If the pipe suddenly chilled and something froze, the ice would freeze the lower valve shut, and the upper valve would still work. Whatever happened below, one working valve would always stand between the propane and the open air. That morning, the order was reversed. The operator opened the lower valve halfway, then the upper valve further. Water ran out, then a little gas, then nothing. He closed the upper valve, cracked it again, got a trickle, and then opened it wide. The line had not run empty. It was blocked by a plug of ice, and now a wide-open valve stood behind it. The pressure broke through the plug. Liquid propane burst out, hit him in the face and arm, and tore his safety goggles off. Half blind, he tried to find his way back through the cloud to reach the valve. Then comes the detail that turns an accident into a catastrophe. The upper drain valve had no fixed handle. It was worked with a loose wrench, and its securing nut was not in place. The escaping gas had flung the wrench off the valve stem, and the wrench caught on a grease fitting, hanging just out of reach. By the time anyone could try again, the stem had frozen solid. The lower valve still had its handle. It had been open from the start, and in the panic, nobody closed it. The men gave up and raised the alarm. For 10 more minutes, the site's own security crew tried to shut the line. By then, the frost had seized both valves. Neither valve could be closed. The leak could not be stopped. Liquid propane does not stay liquid in the open air. It flashes into gas, and that gas is about 1.5 times heavier than air. It does not rise and drift away. It hugs the ground and pours downhill, like water you cannot see. And that morning, there was almost no wind to break it up. Now the geography. The nearest edge of the refinery's gas storage stood 22.5 meters from the A7 motorway, and the motorway ran in a trench 1.5 meters below the level of the ground around it. For half an hour, propane spread out from the broken drain line in a cloud up to 1.5 meters deep. Waist high. Silent. Moving by nothing but gravity, it reached the motorway. Refinery workers ran to stop the traffic, on the motorway and on the smaller road beside it. A truck drove straight through the cloud and came out the other side. Nothing happened. Then, at 7:15, a car came through, past a guard signaling it to stop. It rolled to a halt 160 meters from the sphere. The cloud met a hot point on the vehicle and lit. The flame ran back along the vapor to its source. A minute later, the leak itself was burning, a violent torch at the base of a sphere of liquid propane. The fire brigade arrived to find flame beating against the sphere and water already running short. Then, at 7:45, came what looked like good news. The safety valve on top of sphere 443 lifted. Pressure vented and burned in a clean column of fire, 10 meters high, That is exactly what a safety valve is for. And the report records the judgment on the ground. Positive. The gas would burn off. The situation would be under control within 2 or 3 hours. So the crews made a reasonable decision. On what they knew, maybe the only reasonable one, they stopped spraying sphere 443 and turned their water onto the spheres beside it, the ones that could still be saved. Nobody on that hillside knew it yet, but the open valve was answering the wrong question. It was controlling the pressure. It was doing nothing to protect the steel. At 8:05, one rescue team lashed its hose nozzles in place and pulled its men back. The water kept spraying with no one holding it. At 8:15, 158 people were standing within 120 meters of the sphere. The flames above it were 40 meters high, and sphere 443 was no longer being cooled at all. The valve that fed its own spray system had become unreachable in the heat. By 8:30, they were cutting through the site fence to draw water from the canal. The decision to move the water off the sphere was now almost impossible to reverse. Here's what nobody at the refinery could see. Inside the sphere, the liquid propane was doing the firefighters' job for them. On the bottom half, where liquid touched the steel, the liquid pulled the heat away, the way water in a pot keeps the metal from glowing. The bottom of the sphere stayed cool, but the sphere was only part full. The top half held nothing but vapor, and vapor cannot carry heat away. So while the bottom stayed cool, the crown of the sphere baked, and steel does not need to melt to fail. It only needs to soften until the pressure inside is stronger than the shell holding it. Investigators later cut sections from the wreckage. In the upper zone, exactly where the vapor had been. The steel had reached around 800 degrees Celsius. It had simply given way. All the while, the relief valve had kept the pressure obediently at its set point. A valve can hold the pressure perfectly steady while the steel that contains it turns soft. That combination has a name today, a boiling liquid expanding vapor explosion, a BLEVE. In the words of the official record, in 1966, the phenomenon was, quote, not or poorly known, both within the profession and within the emergency services. At 8:45, the upper shell of sphere 443 gave way. The liquid inside flashed to vapor and ignited in one motion. The fireball was roughly 250 meters across, and it climbed to more than 400 meters. Everyone within 50 meters of the sphere was killed, except 2 firemen. The blast broke the sphere into pieces and threw them across the site. The largest weighed 79 tons. One piece of 48 tons was found 85 meters out, and it had probably taken the legs out from under the sphere next door. Around 9:30, that sphere exploded too, throwing a 47-ton fragment 325 meters. No one was injured by the second blast. Before the morning was over, 3 more spheres had opened and burned without exploding. 5 were destroyed in all. The damage did not stop at the fence. Roofs were damaged more than 2 kilometers away. Walls shifted more than 4 kilometers away. Windows broke beyond 8. 18 people were dead. 84 were injured. 11 of the dead were firefighters. It would be easy to end this story with the man who opened 2 valves in the wrong order. France did not. The inquiry found a system, not a villain. A critical valve worked by a loose wrench, with its securing nut missing. A site that ran short of water within minutes of the first alarm, and underneath it all, a failure the profession itself did not yet understand. 20 months later, in September 1967, France rewrote the rules for storing liquefied gas, separation distances, danger zones, the design of purge lines and relief valves for the day everything goes wrong, and the water a refinery must hold in reserve. The Feyzin refinery is still there. It still runs. The A7 still passes it, and people still live on the hill above. What Feyzin taught, firefighters still learn today. A safety valve controls pressure. It does not protect steel. The valve worked. It was not enough.